In this video, I'm going to introduce you to the non-examined assessment in AQA Computer Science. So, this video will answer a few questions. What is the NEA and why do we do it? An overview of the assessment. Will it be easy? And what will be in the next video? So it's only going to be a short one describing all this stuff. So the NEA itself, it stands for non-examined assessment, and sometimes people will refer to it as a coursework or a project. But it's a little bit more than what you would expect coursework or what we get in coursework or a project in another subject. It's a bit different. It's a bit of a different beast from the course that you get in English literature or history or something else. It's more like something that you'd find at university. It's a bit of an opportunity to develop your practical skills in a way that's different from what you do in class or with tasks that get set by your teacher. So instead of just completing the tasks that the teacher sets you or completing a Code Wars challenge, you'll be solving some form of realistic problem or carrying out an investigation in an area of computer science. And you'll be doing something where it requires you to program. The exam board intended it to be a learning experience as much as a method of assessment. It is worth 20%, but every year we find that the students take so much out of it. It's more than just 20%. You end up learning, you become more resilient with the coding. You come across issues and your debugging improves, and it leads to a better practical exam at the end. So paper 1 was our practical examination. People that do well on the NEA and put time and effort into it and really embrace it do better on their exam as well. So then they're doubling up their marks. They're getting marks for the NEA and they're also getting marks for their exam because they're improving so much. Independent working, it benefits you in your next step, whether that be university, higher apprenticeship, the working world. It's something that you won't be used to. It's again, we mentioned developing practical skill for a realistic problem. I can give you loads of different challenges to do. You can go on Code Wars and have hundreds or thousands of different challenges to have a go at. But can you go into the wider world, given a problem without clear guidance on how to start it or where it will actually end? Can you figure out what the requirements of the project are going to be? That's a bit of a different skill to just being able to just program if you're given a task. It's also been really good for students impressing at interviews. In interviews at university, students have had the entry criteria lowered based on their ability to talk about their NEA, amongst other skills, of course, but the NEA being one that they said was an important factor in them lowering the grade. The apprenticeships in the working world, well, you're showing you're going to come out with something that you can demonstrate to somebody else and say, look at what I can produce. If you produce something really good, it's going to be great. You can turn up to an interview and say, here, look at this. Or, I did this and this is how I did it. It's a great possible interview technique. And again, just to reiterate, it extends your programming skills and deepens your understanding of computer science. So it's really meant to be a learning experience. The NEA is something where you get out of it what you put into it. If you put effort into this and try hard, you will get so much out of it. If you don't, you won't. The overview of assessment. You get 5 sections that get assessed at the end, so it's all being assessed over a document and some videos potentially for testing. It's all being assessed over 5 sections. Those sections are analysis. Just give you a brief of that. So that's where you're identifying what the problem or the investigation is and establishing some research into that area and making some early decisions as to what you want to do. Not how you're going to do it, but what you want to do. Documented design is where we have some form of design. So the analysis explains what you want to do. The documented design would be how you're going to do it. And we're just looking for the most important parts of the system. So where the processing is done and how the processing is done, what data structures you're using and how they're being used. And things like what's it going to look like and how's it going to work. For designing the graphical user interface, etc. Section 3, the actual technical solution, what you're actually going to produce. So at the end of this, what have you actually got out of it? What are the program skills? Is this project complete, and to what standard is it? Do we have some good technical skills in there? Some good programming of A-level standard. Section 4, testing. We've got the program. We need to prove that it works. We've got a testing section to help us do that. In testing, you're demonstrating the solution that you've created and proving that it works. And that can be done through video testing and other means as well. And finally, evaluation. So at the end of completing the whole project, you sit down and have a little bit of an evaluation as to, was it successful? Yes, no, why, and to what degree? And what could you have done better in the future? So if you have a look at the marks that are presented alongside these, most of the sections don't have marks that are that high. But then we do have the technical solution, which is over half the marks. Over half the marks here are for what you actually program and produce. So the most important skill that we're going to be developing and proving to our assessors is the ability to create a program solution. So I'm really pushing the idea that programming is the most important thing. The rest of it has to be there, because you can't just program something without an idea of what you're going to program. So design and analysis need to be there. And you need to prove that it works afterwards. The testing needs to be there, and the evaluation needs to sum up what you've created. But the vast majority of your time and your marks for this are going to be in the technical solution, what you're actually producing. So yeah, 42 out of the 72 marks for what you actually make. So the documentation, we're looking for it to be concise, to the point, but still have a high quality to it. Because we're only going to get a good technical solution if we've got a good analysis and a good design. The testing, once you've actually made your program, it's the easiest section you've got. It's just going to prove what you've done. So, will it all be easy? Or will it be easy? No. Not one of my students have ever had an easy time for the entirety of the project. Some have found it easier than others, but no one's had, no one's thought, oh, this is really easy. It's a challenging exercise. It will stretch you. It will push you. It will be the first piece of real difficult research and work that you put in. But there are ways to make it easier on yourself and to help yourself throughout this. So these are some comments of snippets of advice that past students wish they'd done differently from the start. The most common one was they wish they'd started putting more work in earlier. You know, so many students come out with the comments at the end to us going, if I only had 2 more weeks, I could get it all finished. You've had months to get this done. Not weeks, months to get it done. But they put it off. And it's likely that some of you will still do this. Even though I'm giving you the advice of don't and put more time into it at the start, you will still end up with some students this year coming to me and saying, if only I had 2 more weeks, or if only I had this amount, or if only I'd have started a bit earlier. The second common one is they wish that they chose their projects more carefully. They've got to halfway through their project and realise that they prefer to do something else. And it's really too late for them to change, and they've just got to carry on with what they're doing, really. Even when you're like a few weeks into it, so you've chosen your project and you're a few weeks into it, you've lost those few weeks if you decide, no, I'm going to change it. So it's very important you get a clear idea of what project you want to go for, what you want to do, and spend time and get that analysis correct so you've got a clear vision of what you want to make and what you know is going to get you the skills that you need and the marks that you need to do well in this. Third thing, they wish that they'd broken down their project a bit better. So I've wrote here, broken down the problem so I can work on separate parts of the program. So a lot of students ended up doing their project very sequentially. They did their main menu, then they did their options menu, then they did the help menu, then they did all of these small parts just thinking, oh, I'll do the next bit another time, I'll do the next bit another time, and not thinking to themselves, which parts are going to get me the most mark, which parts are going to take me the longest. So if it was a game, for example, why would you spend like 3 weeks working on a menu system if it wasn't integral to the game? The menu system's not going to be a huge amount of marks compared to the processing that's going along with the game. So they wish that they'd made lots of little prototypes as they went along, and they broke the problem down so that if they get stuck on a particular task, they don't just go, oh, I'm going to leave it. I'll leave it and get some support or help later on. They could go and do something different, work on a separate part. Making lots of little prototypes is an incredibly good way of starting your coding journey with this. If you do it well, if you're doing object-oriented programming, for instance, you could just copy those classes across when you're ready to start building your programs back up. So you can work on parts separately, and you will get stuck at times. But it makes it so much easier if you've broken down the problem into smaller parts first. Document as I went. The documentation can be hard work, especially if students leave it till the end, because they forget what they've done as they've gone along, so they have to go back and remember, oh yeah, I made that little prototype, that was a good design, and maybe they've lost it, can't find it, forgot how it works themselves because they didn't bother to write any comments in the code as they went. So it makes things extremely hard to come back to at the end. So commenting through your code, documenting your design as you make changes. We're not expecting you to do it in the order, design everything, then make it. It's an iterative process. So you should be making and then going, actually, I could do this a little bit better this way, and redesigning. But we do need the evidence in the document of your design, so it can be done after you've made it. But it's far easier to do it as you're going, as you're changing your solution, as you're updating it. Now, we don't necessarily need to see every different version that you create, but every major change, if you're changing the data structure you're using, if you're changing an important algorithm, that needs to be documented that you're going to be using that particular algorithm, that particular data structure, and how it will work in your program. And as always, they wish that they'd followed the advice from the students before us. So students in the year above would advise you all of this and probably more. Follow their advice, make it easier on yourself, put the time in it early, choose your project carefully, make it interesting to you so you want to work on it. Break down the problem so you can tackle it in smaller chunks. Just starting with I've got to make this whole system is incredibly hard to think about. Break the problem down in smaller areas, smaller chunks, and document as you go. That will make it easier for yourself. And then perhaps I would be able to change the answer to this question to yes. When students follow the advice, yes, it is easy. Will it be rewarding? Yes. Or more sensibly, it's kind of up to you. Sometimes the students that struggle most with this project, this NEA, are the ones that find it most rewarding. They come to me at the end and say, my programming is increased, or my programming confidence and skill have increased so much. And that build-up of confidence ahead of paper one, where you're going to be programming in an exam, is incredibly good. Good for me as a teacher to see students so happy and engaged and ready to really show off their skills, and for them because they're prepared, they're ready. I've already mentioned the possible other benefits of interviews, talking about your project and what you've done. It's helped people get jobs, entry criteria lowered. It gives you something to discuss other than somebody else who doesn't really feel passionate about their project or hasn't taken much from it. Incredibly good. It is up to you. And just on that, the skills that you're going to get, you might not notice them, but they will be there. The independent working skills, the confidence of working with something from scratch, starting from nothing. I mentioned earlier that you might be able to do coding tasks if you're given a task, you're given a starting point. But this project where you're given no starting point, you're just coming up with a project idea, it's hard. And you overcoming that will be very rewarding. The next video will be about choosing your project. The next step. Okay.